everybody, welcome back to my channel. Guess who's read like 8 books already in February? And it's only the 10th. Yeah, it was me. It was this girl. So, in this video, instead of making an hour-long February what I've read in February video, I'm going to have to split it up a little because I've been reading so much that if I wait until the end of February, that video is just going to be so long. So I kind of decided to do just like a update because I know a bunch of you have been questioning me and asking me what I've been up to, what I've been reading. I do usually try to take pictures of the books I'm reading and put them on my Snapchat or sometimes like my Instagram story. So if you want to find that information, that's always tagged below too to my other social media platforms. But I want to just start, like I said, it's the 10th of February and I've already read 8 books. So I'm just going to throw them out there so that you guys have an idea of what I've been up to reading-wise. So the first book I read for February, literally I started it February 1st and I believe I finished it February 1st. So this is called The Social Affair by Brittany King. This I think I'm pretty sure it was a free library book that I had just picked up. I wasn't too sure if I was going to really get into it, but I got into it. It was a very enjoyable book. I always don't know if I'm going to, like I said, if I should put spoilers out there or not. So I guess right now I'm not going to really put spoilers out there. If you guys want to do maybe more in-depth book talks or something, we can. So I'll just kind of sum it up. I liked the characters in the story. It's got a lot of trigger warnings. If you have issues with domestic abuse and there's a lot of cult activity, at least that's how I would explain it. It's like a church cult that kind of has some ties into this book. Well, a lot of ties into the book. So there are different things as far as abuse and, like I said, domestic abuse and things like that go on. But it was a really good book. Like I said, I read it straight through. I don't even think I might have stopped for like lunch and then I just had at her. Like I just wanted to see what happened. So this is about a timeless, perfect couple who waltzes into a small coffee shop where Izzy Lewis works. Instantly enamored, she does what she always does in situations like these. She searches them out on social media. Just like that, with the tap of a screen, she's given a front row seat to the Dunn's picturesque life. This time, she's certain she's found what she's been searching for. This time, she'll go to whatever lengths it takes to ensure she gets it right, even if it means doing the unthinkable. So there is a twist in the book that I didn't see coming. I mean, maybe after a while, but it kind of keeps you guessing all the way to the very last couple pages. And dealing with some of the scenarios, I guess, some of the things that happen in this book kind of even triggered me a little bit, but it is a very good book. And now that I found out Brittany King has some more in this, I don't know if it's a series of these or not. I can't remember. I looked it up, but I'm definitely going to find the other ones in this because I want to keep reading. I liked the way she wrote the story. It was not hard to follow along and it flowed. It gave you different perspectives at different times from the different characters throughout. So, but even with that going on, it really was not confusing at all. So it was a good book. Was it a book that I absolutely loved? No, but it was a book I really, really liked and I really enjoyed reading it. So I did give this book a 4-star. The second book I decided to read in February was My Sister, the Serial Killer. So I'll probably butcher her name, but I'm pretty sure it's Oyinkan Brathwaite. So this book, this might have been like a Goodwill book. I can't remember if this was like I'm pretty sure this was like a clearance to Goodwill book, and I picked it up because this pretty green just struck me and I loved the cover. I loved her face. And My Sister, the Serial Killer. Definitely a book that you kind of want to learn a little more about. And it was a book, again, that I picked up, and I was instantly hooked to it. I had to change some of the names in the book, and that's only because I didn't know the correct pronunciation. So when I get like flustered in a book and I can't figure out what the character's name is or how to correctly like say it, I just changed the name. And there was a couple names in here that I was just like, some of them are really easy, like Yinka and things like that, but there's some other ones that were very hard for me to pronounce, and I was just hoping I was pronouncing them right, because I always feel like I'm doing something wrong, even in my own head while I'm reading, bothering nobody. If I don't pronounce the words right or the names, I feel like a horrible person. I don't know why, but I do. So even like I just butchered, I'm sure, her name, I feel really bad about it. I don't know. We're all human, I guess. So this book, again, we want to talk about trigger warnings. There is murder, there is abuse, there is child neglect, child endangerment, there's a lot in this book. And it was good, though. It was a page turner. I kept reading. I got connected with the characters, and that's something I always really look for when I'm reading a book. Like, do I get connected to these characters, or is it kind of a disconnect and I'm just like, nah, whatever, okay. No, I actually really did get into this one. So this is pretty much about the good sister, the bad serial killer sister, and how the good sister, basically, she's kind of a germophobic, and she works at a hospital, and her beautiful sister, of course, right? Like, her sister has everything. She has the looks. She's drop dead gorgeous. Every man sees her and falls all over her, dotes on her with gifts and everything, and she quite obviously does not deserve them. Where the older sister, who, you know, works her butt off to become a nurse, and she does everything by the books, but she doesn't fit that breathtaking, you know, world-stopping person when she enters a room. She's just a plain Jane, basically, and she's pretty much running after her sister to clean up all of her problems, and it takes you on this whole tale about how she gets involved with the sister. The serial killer sister gets involved with some people that are important in her older sister's lives. And that's all I really want to say, because I don't want to give too much away. But again, I gave this book a 4 because it wasn't a 5 for me. 5s are hard to come by. 5 has got to be something that I'm going to carry with me forever. I'm going to be constantly thinking about these characters and wanting to know more, and just love the book. So I did give it a 4 because it's definitely a good read. So that was number 2. So now I'm not sure if I have the rest of these in order as to how I read them or not, because I read so many so fast. I don't remember exactly which ones, and I'm using my phone, so I can't open my Goodreads account to kind of look to see when I added them. But I read this one as well, and this is called The Last One by Alexandra Oliva. Could be wrong on that pronunciation, of course, but this book, I don't even know how to... The first couple pages, the first couple chapters I was reading, and I'm like... Now, the scenario sounded really interesting. It was about this... a reality TV show where the contestants kind of get sent into, like, the wilderness, and they go through all these different challenges, and they're pushed to their breaking points, and they're fighting to survive in the deep forest. But basically, something happens in the outside world around them while they're trapped in this, you know, environmental area, and the contestants kind of don't know what's real and what's not real anymore. Is it part of the reality show? Is it not part of the reality show? And that's all I really want to say without giving too much away. But let me tell you, page after page, chapter after chapter, I'm like, I'm done. This was going to be a book that I pretty much DNF'd because I could not get into this. The way the author was kind of writing in the beginning, and it was just like, okay. The way they named the characters and called them different names, like, I couldn't get into it no matter what I did, and I should have probably clarified that DNFing a book basically means you just do not finish it. You toss it aside because it was that bad. And literally that's the vibe this book gave me in the beginning. Once I got to the middle, because I forced myself to keep reading, it was probably like after chapter 12 maybe, or 13, something like that, if I can remember correct. It was literally like the middle of the book. I was like, I mean, I guess it's picking up at least a little bit. I'm a little more interested, but not really. And I kept thinking 1 star, 1 star, 1 star. And then I ended up getting a little more into it, like I said, in the middle. And then at the end, basically what I wished would have happened is that the author would have started this book at the end and then went on from there. Because, or at least started it in the middle and then went on from there, because the whole beginning of this book was just kind of like, it seemed like it was just this filler. It was just whatever. And then it got more interesting towards the end of the book. The action picked up a little more. There was more interesting kind of plots and different little things going on. But I almost didn't even finish it. So I ended up giving this, and this was still gracious, I think, in my mind. I did give this book 3 stars because it was just okay. It wouldn't have gotten that if it didn't really pick up at the end. So this was just not I don't know. I mean, it was okay. That's kind of what my 3 stars are. It was just, it was okay. So, but if it wasn't for the ending, it wouldn't have even been okay. The next book I read, so I think that was like the 3rd, and the next book I read was a total disappointment. It was almost another book that I just quit reading. I don't even know how I forced myself, and this sounds so terrible, but I don't even know how I forced myself through this. And it's so pretty. Like, look at this book. I mean, it is a gorgeous book, front and back. Like, it's pretty. I love the look of this book. This is literally what drew me to want to pick it up, and the fact that it was a poem book. I love poetry. I love writing poetry. So knowing that this was a poem book, I really thought that I was going to get completely just sucked right in and love every page. It is Poems of Rebellion, Fire, and Beauty, and it's called Wild Embers by Nikita Gill. And I feel so bad giving books bad reviews, but it's just my personal review. You could read it and love it. But for me, like, when I'm reading different poem books and I'm flipping through, I'm like, oh, even if I didn't like one poem on the next page, there was something really cool that I took out of that poem, or something that I really liked that I could take out of it. I did like that there was a lot of, like, women empowerment in this book. I did like all of the space exploration and black holes and stars and galaxies and stardust, and I thought with all of that being discussed into the poems that I was just going to be like, love it, keeping this book. I hated it. I did not like the poems. I didn't like the way she wrote the poems. I'm so sorry. But I could not get into any of these poems, and I was literally like, okay, so basically I just read this. Next page, you're basically talking about I just couldn't. I don't know why. I just couldn't get into it. So this did get a 1 star for me, and I think this one was harder to read, even though it's smaller. This one was harder to get through than this. And I feel horrible saying that because I love poetry, but that was not for me. So that ended up only getting 1 star. And the 5th book I read, I was like, well, hopefully, after having some books that I was not getting into, and I hate that because when I get into those books where I'm like, oh, that's kind of disappointing, then I kind of get into a reading slump where I'm like, do I even want to read another book? Because now I'm kind of disappointed. And so I was like, hopefully this book, small, it should be a quicker read. Hopefully this book will pick me back up and get me back into some higher star levels, you know, to give some of these books. This book. This is called Fat Girl, A True Story by Judith Moore. Now, you want to talk about trigger warnings? Oh, we got trigger warnings in this book. There's child abuse, there's sexual abuse, there's a lot of different kinds of abuse. And I guess for me, it felt like she would go so in depth about her cravings, and it would be like page after page after page of her just explaining about food, which I think she was also trying to get across to her readers that when you have that desire to eat and it feels like you're just constantly filling an empty pit in your stomach, that no matter how much you put into it, you still don't ever feel full. And I don't think it's even just about food. I think it was just about her life and how she was raised, and she missed out on a lot of different things and never feeling good enough, always being the quote-unquote fat girl or the fat girl friend or the fat girl, you know, co-worker. I get it, but I don't, because I know it was her inside thoughts, but she just, it's constantly like fatty this and fatso that, and, you know, so much talk about food. And then it got into, instead of about her, it kind of talked about her life and her dad and her mom and the chaos between the family and how she was kind of belittled, and I just could not get into it. I didn't appreciate really some of the words she used, and if you have ever struggled with any type of eating disorder, be it bulimia or even anorexia or, you know, like any of them, okay? Binge eating, like if you've struggled with any of them, this is a hard book to get through, because it definitely triggers things in your brain, and you read her thoughts and you can sometimes agree with them, but it's, I don't know. I read some of the reviews on the back about how this is a magnificent achievement, stunning, shocking, and sad. Fat Girl is a black diamond revealing its hard brilliance only when you accept its invitation to descend into the soul of the loneliest little girl in the world. And I couldn't get into the book. It might have been my own personal reasons, I don't know, but I was really bummed because, again, I did not want to read it. I didn't want to finish it, but then I figured, no, I'm invested now. I'm finishing it, and I gave it 1 star. So that was kind of a total bummer. And then I just talked to you guys about finding this book along with another one from the same author. This is Burned, and it's Ellen Hopkins. And I kind of went, she has a lot of different books that she has published, and they have a specific order to the storyline and things like that, but yet a different book. Hard to explain, but this was the beginning or the first one in the Burned, I believe it's a series. So there's Burned and then there's Smoke, which I just got in the mail. So I'm going to read that one because this was my 5th book that I finished in February. And I can only say like awesome things about this book. The whole book is written as if she were writing poetry. So there's just different ways that you've seen poems written and things like that. And the author takes them and writes every poem. I want to find one. I'm like, here. She writes on every page, and you're reading the book, but it's written as if it were a poem, and each page is different. And I got sucked in so fast to this book. I'm going to read you guys the back so you can kind of understand what it was about. It says, I felt angry, frustrated. I felt I didn't belong, not in my church, not in my home, and not in my skin. So right there was enough for me to be like, oh, please tell me this is at least the first in one of these books series because I need to read it. And then I went on to reading a little more about it, and it said, raised in a religious yet abusive family, Patty Van Straten starts asking questions about God, a woman's role, sex, and love. She experiences the first stirrings of passion, but when her father catches her in compromising positions, events spiral out of control, and Patton is sent to live with an aunt in the wilds of Nevada to find salvation and redemption. What she finds instead is love and acceptance until she realizes that her own demons will never let her go. It was so good. Sorry, I almost knocked you guys completely over. I read through this. It was literally in a day, and it's a big book. It's thick, but it's so fast to get through. I love how she writes. I love that she actually makes you feel different emotions throughout this book. So it has to do a lot with her religion and just self-exploration and to love and friends and school and her own religious beliefs. And it's called Burned by Ellen Hopkins, and I think you should check it out. I did give this 4 stars. It was almost 5 for me because I did get sucked into the plot. And as soon as I finished reading it, I found the next one in the series to read. So this was a 4-star for me. You guys, you're not going to believe it, but I finished my first ever manga. My daughter is so proud of me. She's like amazed that I even read manga, but it was one of my things that I wanted to do this year was to read a graphic novel or read more graphic novels and actually read a manga. I've never read a manga book before, and I had how many people recommend this book, and this is the complete collection #1, and it is orange, and it's by, I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong, Ishigo Takano. Like I said, probably butchered that, but wow. I did not realize that you have to really control yourself to read a manga book in the way that they're supposed to be read. So you do read the book from the back page to the front, if that makes sense. It's just completely backwards. And when you open a book, instead of reading from this side over, you actually start at this side of the page and you read this way. And then you come up here and read this way. So it took my mind a little while to get into realizing that that's how you had to read it. But then as soon as I did, because I was like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this. But let me tell you, you do. As soon as you kind of go through a couple pages, you're just flying around and you do just fine reading it. So this book was very interesting. And I definitely will be getting the second one. And I can't wait to kind of read that one as well. I liked the characters. I liked the whole plot of what's going on in this book. So basically, this is about this girl, and she receives a letter from her future self, and the letter starts explaining to her that this new kid is going to come to their school, and basically she's going to have to follow along with what these letters that she wrote herself in the future. She's going to have to follow along and do what these letters are telling her to do if she wants to save the new boy's life. And she starts inviting, they all take him into their friend group, and it just tells about, I don't want to give anything away. So I know on the back it talks about how she's supposed to save him from his terrible future. And it says it's a heart-wrenching sci-fi romance and has over 1 million copies in print in Japan. So that's really freaking cool. And I love the characters, and I was going to give it a 5-star, but I think I watched so many book reviews that I started questioning myself, because every book review that I watched, I think there was just girls that did them, but they were like, oh my goodness, I was bawling through the whole book. It was so cute. It was so sad. Like, my eyes were watering the whole time. And I read through this whole book, and it never hit me that deep in my feels that I teared up or anything like that. So then I'm sitting there wondering, like, is there something wrong with me that I'm not having this typical reaction? Because it was really good. I love the characters. I love everything that's going on, but it was not a book that made me cry. I can't wait to find out what happened. So like I said, if I could give it a 4.5 stars, I would, but I did give it 4 stars on my Goodreads account. So I feel like, see, I'm telling you, I read so many books. It's just insane. Like, promise you though, this is the last one so far. So this is A Long Walk to Water, based on a true story by Linda Sue Park. Wow. It's a tiny book, okay? But I ended up finding this, I think, in a free library, and I just was like, I want to know more about this. And I'm glad that I picked it up, and I'm glad that I read it. The back says, young readers everywhere will be stunned by the triumphant climax. Gonna have to say, I completely agree with it. I kind of figured it out towards the end that I was like, oh, I know what's going on here. I know what's going on here. And I was like, yeah, I got it. I got it, and I was right. It is a book about this girl, Naya, who has to go to the pond to fetch water for her family. She walks 8 hours every day. Like 8 hours? Are you kidding me? Whew. And then it also flips to Salva, who walks away from his war-torn village. He's a lost boy refugee destined to cover Africa on foot, searching for his family and safety. 2 young people, 2 stories, 1 country, Sudan. So, you guys, it was good. I enjoyed this book. Like I said, I figured out kind of how the 2 stories end up meshing into one, but it talks about, some of the parts really got me, because being the refugee from a town that was just completely demolished by another group, and there's just war, and there's famine, and you gotta read it. Like, I do recommend it. I did give this 4 stars just because it does make you think, and it makes you want to act as well. And that's all I'm gonna say. So, go check this one out. So I did indeed read 8 books already in February. Like I said, it is only the 10th, and I'm halfway through a book that I'm reading right now, and I'm going to pick up another kind of update vlog, reading vlog with you guys to tell you about the other books that I'm reading. And then instead of having to do one big, huge tell-all of the books that I read in February, at least they're a little separated and they won't be so long. So get ready for those, because I've already got more books I'm reading and I just can't stop. So thank you to all of my other fellow book nerds who want to hang out and hear about new books or just find out what I've been up to as far as reading goes. And I love reading your comments. So leave me comments below about what you're reading, what's on your TBR list. Are there books that are just going to be released soon that you're waiting for? Let me know all of the goods. Like, give me the details. Drop them below. Let me know. And if you're new, join us. If you're not new, I love you. You've been here through all of my randomness, and I can't wait to have some more random moments, random book talks, and all that good stuff with you guys. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. I will be back again soon, and as always, stay random, my lovely, lovely book nerds. Mwah. Bye, guys.